7 is public comments. We've got a card up here from Ms. Ayer. Why don't you come on up, state your name for the record, and it's the normal courtesy.
Hello, I'm Jackie Ayer, and I'm here to let you know about something that we learned about 3 weeks ago. It's something called the County Sustainability Plan. We learned about it probably the 18th or 19th of May. The public comment period on it closed the 25th of May, and includes, among other things, outright bans on all what they call discretionary development in areas like Acton within 5 years. And since the county has recently revised the zoning code to require a conditional use permit to get a grading permit in Acton, that would involve anybody who would like to get a grading permit in Acton, that they will not be allowed to do that and will not be allowed to develop within 5 years. And the plan also calls for an outright ban on all development, including building permits for homes, what have you, in Acton within 15 years. This is a problem because, at least with the town council, we've always taken the position that limited, slow, steady residential development in the community is good for our community, it's good for our businesses, it's good for our school district. However, what this plan is calling for will preclude all of that type of development. So I wanted to let the school board know. We have, I've been working with the Association of Rural Town Councils, and as of yesterday, we managed to get the county to give us an extension to June 28th to submit public comments. So I wanted also community to know about this, and if I can send, we have posted the link to the sustainability plan on our website, and if anybody is concerned about, and all building permits, so if you want to put in a pool or whatever people put up here, a garage, that will be prohibited in all areas like Acton and Ayer, say, because they're considered high hazard areas. So anyway, just want to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We did the flies. So we're going to insert a little something, or a little bit early, the superintendent's report. Do you want to take from here?
Sure. So it's this time of year that we talk about the Golden Apple Award, and so Tienna Main, if you could come up here. So I'm gonna read the bio stuff first, and then I'll just tell a short piece. Where I know you. So I didn't know a lot of things. She's a certified Pilates trainer, and also been in Acton about 20 years. CSUN graduate, worked for Vaughn's in Santa Clarita, horseback riding, raised puppies, including guide dogs. Worked with Lab Rescue, helps in your husband's business, Todd. Is here tonight, right? Hi, how are you, Todd? And likes to cook along with Todd. And then have the kids here, Emily and Chloe. So, but where I got to actually know you a little bit was when I first met Emily. And when we went out for the bond, we thought it might be a nice idea to bring students with us so they could share their perspectives about what a bond might do for the high school and what it did for them and their perception through their eyes when they went from the former high school, what it was physically, to what it is now. And you were just amazing as you met Alyssa and Kyla Cofer at all these different places. Both women's clubs, both town councils, the library for Chamber of Commerce, and so on. And through those meetings, I met your mom. And you're amazing. You're amazing on PTSO, and then your job as treasurer. And then handbells is where I met Todd. So you all performed family handbells quite well together. And so that was an honor to see as well. But I can't think of anybody who's more deserving of this award. And so with that, we want to present you with the Golden Apple Here it is. Congratulations. You are welcome. Congratulations. Well deserved. Can the board
Relax. We all rush here right from work, so you can imagine sometimes a little break is required.
So you're gonna take your mom to dinner? It's on record that you're taking that.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Main, for your help. I've watched you help myself over the years. We helped together on some things. Okay, we're into the correspondence section. 8.01 AATA representative. Any report?
Good evening, we're here, we're just gonna listen tonight.
Okay. Thank you for being here. CSCA representative?
And you too, and thank you, nothing to say today.
Okay. You guys have a good summer. I guess we have one more meeting before summer recess. 8.03 construction report.
I do have a little bit to report on. The back report came on Acton, the back check, sorry. The back check came back, which is good, but it seems like every time I report out, there's like one more step.
Yeah.
So everything came out positive, but they need to do a site visit now, is my understanding. So Ernesto's been working very hard on that diligently with Mike Arona and also Lynn David. So we are almost there. At VHS, we're just working with our project manager and architect to close out phase 3, and we're just negotiating the final terms for closeout. But the field is usable, they've been using it, so that's good. Metal Arc, Proposition 39, the district has sent the contractor notice to begin the work on the HVAC systems. So we're gonna replace the HVAC systems at no cost to the district, going through Proposition 39. For those who don't know what that is, that's funds that we've acquired that are available through the state to allow us to replace lighting, LED lighting, anything that's for energy conservation or outdated HVAC systems. So it's good for our district. Summer projects, things that Ernesto's going to be working on with his crew, the asphalt, carpeting, the grass in the quad area in High Desert, roof repairs at the 4 sites, including Agua Dulce, playground surface at Metal Arc, fire sprinkler repair at Metal Arc, and fire hydrant intact repair at High Desert. The carpeting is at Metal Arc and High Desert.
Since you mentioned the grass and the turf, I was over at Metal Arc. We should check, make sure the sprinklers are working everywhere. There's some brown patches on near the gym.
And I appreciate Ernesto's here tonight. I just want to recognize him. He's been working really hard with his crew to not just curb appeal, but just ensuring that things are set up for summer and that the deeper work and cleaning gets done over the summer. So thank you, Ernesto, for being here tonight and everything you've been working on. Okay, and then the last thing I know he's been doing, it's not on my list here, but I know he's also been the Acton grass back here. They're working on just kind of leveling out. There's a lot of gopher holes. Our teams use it, some of them for practicing and whatnot. And then the same thing at High Desert. I know Ms. T will be happy to know that we're working on leveling that, adding dirt to the
Thank you.
so for her track team. So we're going to get that leveled and safe for our kids to run on it. So that's the construction piece.
Okay. 8.04 safety report.
A couple of things under safety. Okay, so just, we have a safety meeting coming up over the summer. We'll be sure and have district personnel in attendance at that. We've been going to those meetings, and so it's just a collaborative effort to ensure that we're sharing, what are you doing to ensure safety, particularly for crisis situations, and those sorts of things. And so those have been productive meetings. We also purchased 6 AAD devices. We've been talking about the AAD devices, but in addition to the 6 devices we've purchased some with very smaller paddles, so for younger, smaller children to make sure we're ready should that something ever occur like that. The law goes into effect that you have to have those in July 2019. The last thing under safety is the Raptor system. So we're working with this company called Raptor to get a contract. And Raptor is a system, we've probably seen it at other school sites or districts, where when a visitor comes into your school site, or a parent or an employee, they either have a way to scan, so if the custodian's coming in the morning or leaving late at night, they scan in and out. But then if a visitor comes in, and let's say they're a contractor, and you only want them to have access to the softball field, they have to show their driver's license, get scanned. We get an immediate red flag report from Megan's Law, if they're red flagged under that, then we get an immediate alert. And so Yolanda's going to actually work with our secretarial clerical staff at each site and do the demo with them and show them how it works, because you don't want to put a secretary in a position where all of a sudden they're confronted with something like that. They need to know what to say, how to handle it, how to turn it over to an administrator and that sort of thing. But just to give you a quick example, at AADUSD, Ernesto was walking through with one of our potential contractors, took him to that site, and the secretary pulled Ernesto aside, showed him the report, and they immediately were flagged under Megan's Law. So he pulled the contractor aside and said, "You can't come on this campus." The gentleman said, "Why not?" He said, "Can't tell you, but you can't come on. We'll contact your company. We'll have somebody else come out to complete the cost estimates." So it pays for itself time and time again. So this is a valuable tool to the district under safety. And that concludes my safety report.
And that also produces a photo ID that they wear when they're on campus, so we know that that's the person that has that pass to be on.
That's correct, and it also shows the location they're going to.
Where they're going to, so everybody knows where they're supposed to be.
So if they pop over to, Karen DeHammer's office, and she sees on it that it says, basketball courts or something, she's able to say, can I help you, sir, that sort of thing, or whatnot, or contact an administrator.
It's a good system. When I visited the ID campus, I had to show my license, although people mostly know who I am and they ran my license. And whereas we have a little apple with our name on it here, there's a picture of yourself and the fact that you're checked in, and so seems like a pretty good app.
There was a sample too that we saw at the Antelope Valley School Boards Association.
Oh, okay.
And remember, my concern was, is the font big enough? It sounds fine and dandy, but if I can't see it, what good is it? And it was big enough, and it was dark enough,
Yeah,
Which I like.
you choose your color, like when they go around the AV district, it's yellow with the black, and the last name is bold, so everybody can see the last name, and then it has a photo, which is on your driver's license. It's a good code.
You're done with the?
Done with C.
Okay. Normally, it's cool, D. Normally, we collect these beforehand, but it's on the Raptor thing we were just talking about, so.
And it's only because somebody questioned me and I didn't know he was going to talk. Somebody asked at the elementary school, we walk our children onto the campus. Is that not going to be able to be done anymore at the beginning of school?
I don't know. Well,
Okay.
we'll look into it.
Okay.
We'll look into it, yeah. Thank you. Correct, yeah.
Anything on submissions? 8.06?
No submissions.
Board member comments, 8.07, we usually just go down.
Do
Oh, did I skip superintendent report? I did, sorry. 8.05, I skipped.
Okay, so just, I'll try to be brief in my comments because I know we have a full agenda. So the first thing is, we've been working on the gold standard, which is we've been talking about stay gold for 2 years, but then the gold standard is our strategic plan. So I just want to thank the stakeholders who came to the 2 meetings, the past 2 Mondays, the 3rd and the 10th. It's time intensive, and it's teachers' summertime, at least the 10th was, and for other folks too that were volunteers from the community, Tom Castan, I can't remember them all, but there was 25 to 30 of us at any given time. Kelly Jensen came to the first day on the 3rd. Lillian was there. So I just want to thank all the committee members who gave up their time to be at the trainings. And what we walked away with was we had kind of post-it paper up everywhere, and everybody incorporated their ideas. Ms. T was there, Ms. Trussell was there, Ms. Chun was there, and we went around with sticky notes and highlighted certain pieces that we wanted to be sure were incorporated into the strategic plan. So now it's the district's job, take that back, write up the strategic plan, draft, send it back out to all the stakeholders. We want to make sure that it's the stakeholders' voice that was being heard. So we aren't, as the writing team, which is with the facilitator was Doug Deneen from Leadership Associates and staff, will write it up, but truly the work was done on the 3rd and the 10th. So we take that, pass it back out, get kind of the okay from the team, comes back to us, and then we'll bring it to the board for approval. And so once we have that, that becomes the driving force for how we look at resources, how we look at our branding, how we look at instructional practices, campaigns, priorities, and it was a great prioritization exercise. So I just want to thank the board for allowing us to do that and suggesting it actually, and then the committee for all their work on that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the promotions were amazing. 4th grade promotion, I thought they did a great job. We really, I think it was a nice award ceremony. I know Mr. Fallsgraf was there with me, and I appreciate the teachers and Ms. Toledo for the program that they put on. I thought it was just a terrific program and a great way to recognize our 4th graders. Same thing for the High Desert School promotion. I know Dr. Weiss and her team, and even Tiffany Escada came from the high school, and it was just a team effort. It was beautiful on the front with all the pieces hanging down from the, I don't know what you call them, streamers and whatnot, but it became a great backdrop for photo opportunities, and saw a lot of parents, Ms. Moskowitz and so on, taking pictures, and really proud of the kids. And the kids are just amazing always. We had one courageous student got up there and sang a song, which I thought was absolutely amazing, because I don't know that I could go a cappella on my own without any background or with background. You won't want to hear me sing anyway. And then the last graduation we attended was actually an ILEAD charter. Mr. Fallsgraf met me over there, and ILEAD Empower and Innovations is a program. It's 23 students, 15 from one school and 8 from the other. And these students were amazing. Many of them have young children. They had children as early as 13, 14, 15 years old. They were carrying in their arms 2 years old, 3 years old, newborn babies. And when I went back and I met with all 23 of them before the graduation, and they were sitting back there fixing their hair and doing all the things that graduates do, but with a baby in their arms. And that I've never been to a graduation like that, and it was amazing. They asked me to speak for a few minutes there, and I just thought those kids were awesome. It was great to be part of that. Because our charter schools are our partners, and it's important to be part of those things, so I appreciate that. We're applying for a California School Board Association Golden Bell Award. So the applications having to do with the work that our seniors and our video production classes and our staff at Vasquez High School did on the senior walk. So we've done the senior walk 2 years in a row, so we're submitting out for the Golden Bell Award. And then, did we speak to Larry? Okay, so we're gonna maybe do something with Larry Rowland's class in handbells, but we're gonna speak to him first. But we have a performance idea that we'll share more on later, but just want to really thank him for all his work with that. And then we have one video to show the board. I did. So, yeah, you know what, because I was thinking we'd already had that because the other ones came after, but we hadn't had a board meeting.
I don't think we have
We did.
since that.
No. So, yes, the Vasquez High School graduation was amazing. So it was truly, truly amazing. You know, when I was talking, no offense to the parents, but they kind of become a blur in the background because I try to make eye contact with the students. And when you only have 90 students in your senior graduating class, it's easy to look at Emily Main and Alyssa and Kofer and all these kids and know who they are by name and face. And that's a treasure. So it was a beautiful graduation. So thank you, high school, for an amazing graduation. And the last piece now is the video. And so, Ms. Bowdoin, thank you for being here. Did you have somebody with you?
Yes, my husband, Matt.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
You don't have to share anything, Matt. You're good. But I do want to brag about your wife for a moment because we got we do a lot of video footage in our district, and we have some video footage of her with her students. And I just think you're first-year teacher, right?
Yeah.
And done an amazing job with her class.
What have you done this year to help your students be successful?
To help my students be successful, I've taught them multiple strategies to solve problems, whether it's academic-wise, behavior-wise, or whatever. So for example, when we're learning division, division is hard, and I love to see them using the strategies that I teach them to solve the division problem on their own.
And how have they done so far this year?
They have done amazing. They are such an awesome group of students. They're problem solvers, they're so intelligent, and I could not ask for a better class.
And as far as the students coming into your class for next year, what is it they need to do in order to get the most out of you in third grade?
Just put in your best effort. I'm okay as long as you try.
And how far have you taken them this year?
We have taken them all the way from, in math, from basic addition all the way up to division, which is a huge jump. We're just adding on to the skills that they've already learned in first and second grade. In language arts, we've gone from picture books all the way up to lengthy chapter books, writing essays, learning how to type on the computer. We've done so much this year.
And what was your goal?
My goal is just to get them to have a well-rounded education in every way possible. So whatever I can do to help them, that was my goal.
How long have you been teaching in this community?
This is my first year
First
at
year?
Meadowlark. Yes,
Really?
first year.
How would you describe the children and parents and the community in 1 year?
In 1 year, I've learned that it's a very tight-knit community. We're really, really family because it is so small. And I love that we're always here for each other and to support each other. This is Mia, and I'm so proud of Mia because she always puts in her best effort to making her assignments look amazing. So Mia, can you show us an example of your current work? Mia, why are you proud of this?
Because I worked hard on it.
She worked hard, she made everything nice and neat, went over it in detail, added detail to her drawings that she did and her writing. Look how much she wrote in such a tiny space. I'm very proud of this example of work.
So Mia, what do you love about your teacher?
She just teaches us a lot of strategies, like when we have our numbers, like if we have a problem that we're working hard on and we need to go over, we just go over there and go over it.
How much have you learned so far this year?
A lot.
Give us an example.
I learned my times really fast because she gave us a lot of examples.
Multiplication facts.
And how do you feel now that third grade's almost over?
I feel really full of a bunch of math problems in my head.
What's it like?
Good to know
Feels
math problems?
It feels smart.
She feels smart now, but I'm sure you want that, right?
I do. I'm very
You guys
happy
feel
to do
smarter
that.
after the end of the year?
Yeah!
Does anybody feel dumber?
No.
Okay, that's good. All right. Anything else you want to tell us? Here's your moment.
Well, my teacher's amazing.
Yeah. That's nice, right?
Yeah.
You guys love your teacher?
Yeah!
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so how was that?
That was very nice to hear. You know, sometimes you don't get to hear what they think and their side of the story, so it's nice to hear their thoughts every once in a while.
Love your purple boy.
And to get feedback from them too.
Yeah, let's pull up the boy.
Ooh, a boy. This is Ethan, and I'm proud of Ethan because he has grown tremendously in academics throughout this school year. Ethan, what are you proud of this school year?
This math.
Why are you proud of that? But
It teaches me so many stuff, but she helped the math book out. And I like math now.
so you didn't like it before, but now you do? Look at that. Just gonna make learning fun sometimes. Do you think I made learning fun, especially math? See, that's nice to hear too.
How's he grown over the year?
In every way possible. Academically, socially. He never had a behavior problem, so that's okay. But he has really grown in every way that I can think of.
What's the, third graders, it's an interesting grade, like, how far can they go?
They can go as far as they are willing to go. So I have some students that are currently reading at almost a 7th grade level in 3rd grade. So it really depends on how far they want to push themselves.
Could every kid read in the 7th grade if they wanted to?
Absolutely. There's nothing stopping them. Nothing stopping them from achieving their goals.
So if they come in next year, you can help them all get there if they want to.
Absolutely. I would love to help them. That would make me so happy. And
Right.
that's why I'm here, to help you.
What do you think would happen if every 3rd grader at this school was reading at the 7th grade level?
I think that would push every other grade level to do the same, to read above and beyond their grade level goal too. It would just kind of have a domino effect throughout the whole school and push everybody up to the next level.
So just a quick comment on the video. So Ms. Bowden, you're so courageous. Thank you for your thoughts. They were great. But that video goes 18 minutes. So that was 5 minutes of it. If you saw, and I'm not sure if that's why you all were laughing, but if you saw the little boy, so he actually gets an opportunity to speak. So not surprising, he gets an opportunity to speak, and his thoughts are amazing. He's the cutest little boy, but he's articulate, and he was fun to hear. And so you'll get the full video, and board will be sure to share that with you as well.
Can we just take a minute to give her a golden coin, please? Thank you so much for all you do. Anyone that can get kids to love math that much?
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Congratulations, Ms. Bowden.
Thank you.
Are we,
I'm done.
okay, so returning to the main line of different board member comments now. All right, we can just go down the row. You want to start, Mr.?
Start with me, okay. So I only have a few of them, and it's, 2 of them are apologies to the High Desert staff and Meadowlark, because I missed your promotions. I had them on the calendar, but I got yours mixed up with High Desert's, and then I showed up High Desert the day after when they were at Magic Mountain, because it was going crazy. So the only one I did make was the high school, so please extend my apologies to your staff. I'm very appreciative and very, I know there's a lot of work that goes into the school year, and everybody did it, and a lot of success that I've heard about, and I've talked to other people, and so I extend that, but I apologize for missing what happened again. And that's all I have.
I've got a few things here and I'll blow through them quickly. First, I want to recognize that I've heard either in person or by email from Barbara Moran, Chad Wadsworth, Dr. Shoddy, Anthony Mann, and Dee Holland, and by way of email, Denise Torkelson, Danielle Gersh, Barbara Moran, Crystal Moskovitz, Mary Fife, and Wendy Calvin. Know that I take your input and consider it carefully. blowing through these quickly. VHS graduation was awesome. I had driven straight from San Diego, and Tim helped me get up on the stage late without anyone knowing. Meadowlark, back to the graduation. I thought the speeches by the school staff were very meaningful. Mike, I very much appreciated your gracious and humbleness in your comments as the board president. And it's the best thing for me because the graduates that I see come up on the stage, they're the beacon of what our community is all about to this world out there, so I'm very proud of you all. I'm worried about your family there. Do you all have a structural permit for your floors in your house? Because you've won a lot of awards. Meadowlark, I like the format of what you guys did with the kids this year. There was balloons at the end. It wasn't everybody walking across the stage, but people were recognized for their academic performance, their attendance, and their improvements and things like that. And it was meaningful, and it wasn't because if we have advancement ceremonies for every grade, we'll be there forever, and I probably won't live that long. But I really liked your format, and it was meaningful to the parents. And I very much appreciated the teachers that were there literally being cheerleaders. Thank you, Ms. Toledo, for a wonderful year of service to the district. The iLead events, they actually had me go in to talk about my work with community master planning with people who have shared my level of intellect, first graders. And it was very profound because little kids will tell you the most awesome things before they get their mind polluted by the world. So I very much enjoyed that. Having the parents, having someone graduate with a baby in their arms is just kind of something that in the greater part of the world, I'm glad that we're able to service those kids, because for them to get through high school while raising an infant by themselves or with a little help from the family is just something that's incredible, and I hope they can recognize that getting through that at this age is something that they're prepared to face any challenge. So I'm glad that we have that. The iLead community event was awesome, considering that we had a charter shutting down over there, and there was a lot of dismay over that. It was incredible. VHS, PTSO, you were there, and I think that adds to the mix. And did you really win, Lee? Anyway. Okay, now for a little bit of a pleasantry. I went down to San Diego County and watched some people be indicted for theft of public funds to the tune of $50 million. Over 2 years. And what was really amazing is some of those people that were hauled off in handcuffs to make bail had actually stood at that podium right there and asked and were kind of dodgeball my questions. So shout out to Mr. Reed. If you go back to those videos, those exchanges between me and those people, it's pretty telling. The one indictment that I'm looking at, by the way, the indictment listed this district or references to this district in six places, and they were more about what was being told to our questions at that podium. The one indictment that I'm really looking at closely is the indictment of the superintendent that sponsored all of those charters. It's very clear to me that that superintendent did not profit from this personally, but I think either the DA is either trying to make something stick by making a criminal offense out of charging more than what the actual cost recovery was. And knowing what I know about law, that's not the proper venue to do that. A criminal court case isn't. But I think they're trying to pressure up on her to find out where the direction to start this program to do this came from, what the motivations were, and maybe possibly to find out who was encouraging that superintendent to go like this to the tune of $50 million. Anyway, I'm very proud of the way that this district asks very tough questions, and I'm very proud of those charters that give us the answers to those questions. I'm proud of the way that our team vets charters, and the iLead thing is a perfect example of something that's meaningful and not something to be tainted by the actions of a few. Finally, I want to talk about High Desert. The promotion was great, loved it, it's always great. But the open house Mr. Mann addressed this a little bit earlier. There was a lot of apprehension about what was gonna happen over there. The community, they weren't really good about what had happened with this camp. I want to congratulate Mr. King and his staff and the facility staff, Lynn and your team, for finally getting DSA stuff out of the way here for this campus. But that transition over there didn't just happen. I think what made it meaningful was we had some veteran teachers and veteran staff that went over there and were the example. Some of the older kids had been through these teachers' classes. While Ms. Trussell had Mr. King pinned down in the room, I had a conversation with Mr. Pelham, Ms. Larson, and Ms. Lapp, and I let them know that I thought they had a very meaningful role to play. I want to run Mr. Pelham up the flagpole a little bit here. You know, I never hear from Mr. Pelham. He never has the word to say, but you hear all kinds of things about him in the community, and they're positive things, and he represents the brand that I want this district to have. And I want to thank him for showing a steady face, whether he's in a public conversation or a private conversation. He's the brand of this district, really. People like him, and we have a lot of teachers like that. But what I do want to point out is, while I was telling them about how important they were, they diverted the attention to an employee that supports them. And I'm going to track that employee down tomorrow and give them one of these. So try and guess who it is. I've got bids up on eBay as usual, but you'll know soon. I thought it was very impressive that they would talk about one of the support team as being even more critical in the transition over there. The parents that helped with this, Mr. Mann, Ms. T, you really made it to where kids feel safe there, and now they're too cool and too grown up for some of the stuff they used to do. Anyway,
Thank you.
I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations to Mrs. Bowman again. Thank you so much for, it's Bowden, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for everything you do, and for all of our teachers being here, especially during the summer. So we appreciate that all you've done for our students. I'd like to thank the strategic planning committee. Our principals did some great, and our staff did some great presentations, and we heard lots of things from the community. Fortunately, I could only be here for a short time, but I was really impressed with the teamwork. So like we talked about, you know, making sure that everyone's voice is heard as much as possible, and that we can take it back and it's not rushed. So it's right when we have it done. So thank you so much for doing that and all the great ceremonies. I'm excited about the Raptor safety system, but I think we have a good point here is to make sure that we let our community know before we just actually put it in there. And last thing a school secretary needs is a parent there or somebody that can't get through and is very upset because they didn't know that system is in place, and we do have to consider about letting people on the campus. I think that's just about all. I do want our community to know that we do read your emails, and even though sometimes we don't respond to certain things because we can't give information, that we do take your comments very seriously, and we do listen, and we know that we represent our community and our students, and we take that very seriously. So I'd like to thank our parents and for their patience and just sharing your comments, and so we just want you to know that we appreciate you and we do care deeply for your students. That's all I have for tonight.
I'll be very brief, and there's a pretty good agenda, and I don't want to be repetitive. I concur with all the things I've heard tonight. I also would like to express my apologies for not making it to the Meadowlark or High Desert promotions. It's very important for parents. It's very important for their kids, of course, and staff as well. The freeway lately, you know, it doesn't matter when I leave work. You can't get someplace at 6 o'clock. So, at any rate, I was stuck in a traffic jam. So please accept my apologies. I'll try next year. Again, for our staff and our students, please have a happy and safe and healthy summer. Come back refreshed. And thank you. It was refreshing seeing that. I mean, we don't get. I know many of the veteran teachers because my kids all went to school here. But now my kids are almost done, so it's a real pleasure to meet the next generation of teacher. And it's wonderful to have you, really, very inspiring. And I'm glad you're here. And then last thing, because it was on Saturday, I was able to go over to the AADUSD campus. They had a project-based learning thing about kids running their own little businesses and little bake shops. We do project-based learning here. My kids did it plenty, so I don't think it was that different. But I'm always on the lookout for what people are doing differently. That may be a neat thing here. And they had an outdoor classroom. It was pretty cool. And I don't know if there's a place on our campus, just because of the configuration where we could make one. I don't know how much the teachers would like one, but I think it'd be pretty cool if the kids had a place where they could have instruction under a tree, if that's possible, get read to instead of on a mat under a tree or something once in a while. So there's some way we can, and there's support out there amongst our parents and our teachers to try to make something like that. It was pretty neat.
So just a quick comment on that, Ms. Jensen's comment. Amber and Dawn, the CEOs from Ivy, contacted me. They were impressed that you were impressed with that. I haven't had a chance to speak with Ms. Toledo or the staff, or she hasn't had a chance to speak with staff, but they'd like to walk the school site and be a partner with us to see if there's any interest in developing something like that. I know they'd also be open to teachers going over to their site. We could work with Lisa, the principal over there, so just we'll have some conversation about that. But yeah, they were excited about that. And then as far as the Raptor, it's a great point, but when they did the webinar presentation to Cabinet, they shared that they have a whole process for laying out flyers and information and making sure that everybody gets a thorough heads up on it. So yeah, we'll work with the community.
It gets a little sticky. Parents want their kids safe and they do want parents to feel welcome. So, it is a sticky situation, I understand, but.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think that wraps up board member comments. So item 9.1 is the consent agenda. And do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, Ken Fallscraft, Tim Jorgensen. Any discussion regarding consent agenda? Okay, so then I'll make a motion that I'll call the question, adoption of the consent agenda. Call the question? Aye. All right, and the consent agenda is all of section 9. Okay, which brings us to item 10, educational services. This is the High Desert School Handbook. It's a first read of the 2019-2020 draft handbook. Motion to open, I'll make that. Second to open?
Second.
Okay, and before we start, it's a draft and it's a first read. I don't think there's a vote required?
There's not.
Okay. What's that? Okay, that's okay. I just thought I had my rules. Okay, thank you.
And then just a comment, I don't know if the board would be open to it, but for the elementary school and the high school, we could do a read and approval on the 27th, or we could do a first read on June 27th, and then approval at the fourth Thursday in August, which would be the next board meeting. But they would need that handbook to go out ahead of time. So it's not necessarily a legally compliant issue. This is a practice that's been, I think, going back some time in our school district, that the board approves these handbooks. So I don't want to hold them up from printing over the summer is what I'm getting at.
I'm okay with the read and approval.
Are these substantially different than last year's? Is there anything that is?
No, just quick notes, the High Desert Leadership Team in May 2018 went through it. So it was updating the logo, updating board members, going through it specifically. Last year, what we addressed the leadership team was dress code, and it was, welcoming leggings into the 21st century and what that should look like and what's appropriate. Also for shorts as well, and acknowledging, shorts cannot be all the way down to your knee, but our what the leadership team agreed on and shared with staff was, as long as they're longer than when you put your arms off to the side. You know, we're flexible, of course. If a student is out of dress code, we make a phone call home or we give them PE clothes. And that was last year. Quick additions, I think I highlighted it in yellow. It was adding a couple of staff changes, but also adding more to our clubs and activities that was not there before, and having an explanation of dancing feet, handbells, Science Olympiad, our athletic program. We did not include GPAs because, you know, we're still in the planning for athletics program, but just general ideas and summations of those programs. And speaking with Tess, I know as the veteran principal of a year and 3 months in this district, I got ahead of the handbook, and so I shared around with Tess, and we're thinking about for the next school year, as we get our first year of PBIS, that we want to incorporate those types of things. But in our handbook that's being presented, it is Ed Code 48900, just the clear Ed Code.
I have a question. Who's the leadership team that participated in this?
The leadership team that participated is Eleanor Shirk, Special Education STC, Michelle Van Ornum, 8th grade math, ASB, and yearbook and videography. Kayla Scripture, Social Studies, Coding and Game Design. Marilyn Alford, Medal of Honor, Science 8. Diana Spiegel, I know I was thinking 5th grade isn't here. Diana Spiegel from the 6th grade team. Those same people are on our leadership team. And stepping in for 5th grade is Alexa Lepp. So that is our current 1920 leadership team.
So there's plenty of input from the staff and teachers.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Clarification, you said something about like you're not using the 2.0 for athletics like it is at the high school. But for the 8th graders, you are embedding in their head they have to have a 2.0 when they go to the high school.
I did not include, I'm sorry for not being clear, we did not include the GPA requirements for the activities.
To participate.
To participate, but they all are 2.0.
Right, so and then that conversation with them about all you athletes that want to go to the high school or any high school, 2.0 is required in your life, so they don't get there and say, oh gee, I can't participate.
That's said in our newsletter. We've also included, I also included the link to the CIF Blue Book.
Okay.
We also included it in a bottom line for the 4th quarter progress report and the final grades as well. And also, we had Vasquez High School students coming in on a morning announcements, encouraging and informing kids that they have to have a 2.0 GPA.
Is there a reason it's not in there?
I only had a day to revise it. It will be on the 2nd draft.
Is that good? Everybody good with that? Yeah, it should be perfect.
We have a meeting on Monday to finalize the athletics and GPA, so I wanted to make sure I met with the stakeholders and Mr. Sparks, our new athletic director, who I'm excited to be taking over, and I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page and more than a couple of us went through it.
Okay. Anything else?
We welcome all feedback.
No,
So,
I read it. I sent in
okay.
my limited feedback by email. So I'm good with the first read. Is there anything else to this first read? Okay. Thank you very, very much. And what materially came out of this is when it comes back for approval in 2 weeks, you'll have the GPA requirement.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then with your, regard to your comment about the, because you were looking for some direction from the board, I'm okay for a first read, for a read and an adoption at the next meeting. Most of us can read them online and provide any email comments. And should something escape through, I mean, the worst case, we could amend it by an amendment.
Yeah.
Is that approved?
Yeah, I don't.
No, they want to get them printed for next year, so that's why I'm sympathetic, and I think that we can work through hearing it and approving it in one meeting.
That's for the high school and
elementary school.
and middle.
And middle.
Yeah, so I'll talk with staff and, because, we're kind of heading into summer and I know Tess.
I'm just saying, the board has said we're flexible.
Okay, good.
That's all. I mean,
Good, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, that moves us on to 11, business services. Item 11 is an action. Okay, it is the district plans to purchase Chromebooks for Middle Ark School and High Desert School. It's a purchase with CEW-G Chromebook purchases. Somebody want to move it? Make a motion?
So,
Okay, Tim Jorgensen, I'll second it. Any discussion?
Just a quick comment, then we have questions, Ms. David's here, but these are funds that needed to be expended first of all. They're from our Title I funds. Secondly, it's in alignment with our LCAP plan. And so, unless you have more in-depth questions, then that's essentially my general comment.
I'll just simply add that, we added Chromebooks. Chromebooks are required to do the Common Core, and we have a refresh cycle on the Chromebooks, and that's what this is.
Correct.
And it's nice that there's external funding to do that refresh. We need to do it otherwise. And we piggybacked on a purchase with Monterey County Board.
In this case, it's Monterey,
Oh, I
so
didn't mean to
I'm
steal
glad
your-
you mentioned it, because I did want to share out that, wherever possible, we do attach to a piggyback so that we can get already, it saves us the
Volume
challenge
purchases.
of going out for a formal bid when we're doing large purchases, and we get the best pricing.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, I'm glad you did.
Okay.
No,
so
thank
that
you.
was just for the
I
public
just so
out
that
there who
everybody
read this
knows
stuff
that we
before.
are being frugal.
Yes.
So-
All right.
So this is replenishing, getting replacements, it's not adding to, increasing our ones?
We're already one-to-one
So we're
across
already
the
one to one, so
district.
that's fine, so this is just keeping them up to date.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right. Call the question.
Aye.
That's a 4-0 to 1 vote. All right. I'll stay in my lane, Ms. David, for the next
No,
one.
thank you.
11.2.
Just as long as it comes out.
Resolution 18-19.19, declaration of indefinite salaries for retroactive pay. I'll move this in. Do I have a second? Second, Kelly Jensen. Okay, it's a long title. I'll let you explain this one.
Okay, actually, almost everything in this next set of items is something that we bring annually. This is one that if there is not an approved agreement in negotiations, this actually allows pay to be retroactive when it becomes approved. So this just allows that to happen. Something we bring annually.
Yep, to that end, everything that you'll see coming up for a while here is housekeeping that we have to do before the beginning of the next fiscal year, the next July period. All right, so any board member or other questions? Okay. All right, call the question.
Aye.
11.3, resolution 18-19.20, school districts with ADA below EC 41301, education code 41301 level, year-end appropriation transfers. I'll move this in.
Second.
Tim Jorgensen. Ms. David, just a brief description?
So what this particular one is, if a district has less than 1,501 students, this is a particular form. Districts with more ADA have a similar form. It allows county office to move money around when we're closing out to, so that we don't ever have a negative balance. They can move they can move the funds for us.
Any questions? Call the question.
Aye.
11.04, resolution 18-19.21, authorization for temporary interfund cash borrowing for 2019 and 20. I'll move that in.
Second.
Okay. And little discussion of this one.
Actually, so first of all, I have to confess, I think that I actually did a typographical error at the top on the title where it says authorization, and it actually says 1819. So we might have to just scratch that out, Kelly, but before we sign it. But what this is this actually gives the district authorization to temporarily transfer funds from one fund
So when we get to the budget part, you'll see my usual little pots of money. This allows us to temporarily move funds from one pot of money to the other for cash flow purposes. You can only do up to 75% in any fund, and then you have to be paid by the end of the year.
So, I think it's fine to make a motion just as amended, and we'll
Sure.
the amendment.
Sure. Call to question to approve this motion as amended to fix the typographical error. Aye. 11.05, resolution 18-19.22, authorization for interfund cash transfers for 2019 and 20. I'll make that motion to move it in.
Second.
Kelly Jensen, okay. They're all kind of related, folks.
Yeah, this is similar. The difference is we're talking actually about a transfer. There are certain funds where you can actually move funds from one to another. Fund 17 would be an example of that. Some districts, we don't actually do it, but some districts actually move general fund money in there for certain purposes that the board would designate, but it would allow us to move and transfer funds from one fund to another on a permanent
Right,
basis.
and that's the difference between this one and the previous one. One is a
Correct.
borrowing, and the other is a transfer.
You know, or if we wanted to move money into deferred maintenance or such as that, we need to do that now to be able to do it next year if any sorts of a decision change.
Right, we need to put the infrastructure in place should we choose to do that in the next business cycle. Okay, call the question?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, motion, 11.06, resolution 18-19.23. Authorization for temporary transfers for the school pools fund maintained by the Los Angeles County Treasurer, 2019 and 20. I'll move it in, second. Okay.
So this one we actually did bring last year, but this is a little bit different than, we've not actually utilized this before, and I hope we don't need to, but this particular resolution allows the district to borrow money from the county treasury temporarily rather than going out for a tax revenue anticipation note, where you're borrowing against what you're, kind of like payday cash advance. We can borrow directly from them and not have to pay the interest that we would pay in a tran. So because our other funds are reducing, we believe that we're gonna be okay and not need to use it. But if we had a flood or some terrible thing occurred, this puts us in a position where we could temporarily borrow up to $1.5 million on a short-term basis until revenues come in so that we don't have a cash shortage.
And so, as I read it, or perceived it as, it's a service the county provides to districts, and in providing that service, it saves us interest payments should the eventuality arise that we would have to do something like this. So we're glad they provide the service.
Yeah, because as you'll see later, now because we've expended most of our other funds down since we've completed projects and such, we really only have the ability to borrow about $600,000 from within our own. So if we had, because we actually have good reserves right now, but if something unforeseen, significant happen, we do at least are protecting ourselves.
Okay. Any questions from the rest of the board? Call the question. Aye. Okay, and now we're getting to some good stuff here. So 11.07 is a public hearing on the local control accountability plan for 2000, is that really 17, 18, 19, 20, and
It's an excellent point of clarification. So, well, obviously, 3 years
is the
ago.
title correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll
Yes.
let you clarify once we move it in.
Sorry, okay.
That's okay. So we're gonna open the public hearing at 9:07, 9:08. Motion to open the public hearing, I'll make it. Kelly seconded. Call the question to open the hearing? Aye. That's required. All right, we're not actually voting on the LCAP at this point, that'll be the next meeting.
Correct.
Correct.
Just a quick comment before they roll out. This time intensive. I just want to say they've worked on this for weeks, both this, I won't comment again on the budget one, but, Fridays, Saturdays, midnight emails, and appreciate both Dr. Cooper's efforts and Ms. David's efforts. It's a lot of work. These are normally separate departments in big districts, but the work's the same.
Well, I'll just briefly set the stage, and then I'm going to turn over to Dr. Cooper because to clarify the question, the reason the title is that is in 2017-18, actually at the end of 16-17 for 17-18, the state began using a 3-year static plan where we just updated. It used to be we redo everything for a rolling 3 years. So during that year, it became a static plan where we provided the structure of this has an annual update, which we brought to you in March, and then the plans for the new year and the information about stakeholder input. So that's why we added the part in year 3. We are entering into the 3rd year of the LCAP. You know, as Dr. Cooper will share, we don't have a lot of changes, no changes in the goals, actions, very minimal changes, more along the lines from the input that we've got, that the changes are related to intensity that we do things. No major changes in what we're doing with related to PD or things like that. It's more like the intensity may change or where the actual focus is. So I'm going to turn over to Dr. Cooper, and I have really enjoyed being able to turn all the narrative piece over to him. It's a relief.
I feel like she said it all.
Nope.
So you know this is a 3-year process. Like she said, we're entering into the 3rd year. But let's talk about how we got to that point. Here you see, well, if you can see it, our reporting out over this school year, the summary of plans and how we plan to go forward with action items, and then we'll get into the required sections of LCAP. So these are all of the items that need to be placed in the LCAP. You see the title page, and it just basically gives a story of Acton's history, the school district. It talks about over the years how we progressed or the areas that we decreased, and our plans moving forward over the 3 years, and how the different goals and actions are going to be funded. So here's our first goal. I just want to point to the fact that this is really looking at our academic achievement and how we plan to do it. We're going to be really heavy on professional development next school year. We really will be focused. I think you heard from our teacher on the video. It would be great if our students were at a level where they were reading at the 7th grade. I think that most teachers and administrators agree, and so the emphasis next school year will be on bringing our kids up to a higher level and increasing their scores with regards to English language arts. So the second goal will be an emphasis on our English language learner populations, and like Ms. Davis said, nothing much has changed. We have consistency at our schools now with leadership, so we believe that we will see growth in this area also. We have some things in place for Goal 3 that I think is really effective. We have a SART team, we have a DART team looking at our students, chronic absenteeism and truancy, and those teams come together to really highlight how we can support students that have these difficulties, and Goal 3 is an emphasis on that. So just recently we've had in Goal 4, we see this in action with our strategic planning. We want to provide opportunities for our community, our parents, to understand what's going on inside of our schools, and we would like them to be involved in the decision-making process, and that truly was evident just a few days ago in Goal 4. Oh, Goal 5 is an emphasis on our students being college and career ready. We did see some growth, not enough, but the emphasis on this particular goal will be to increase opportunities for our students so that they are college and career ready. 100% on this goal. We have maintained appropriate staffing. Our teachers are 100% credentialed. So the 7th goal is an emphasis on surveying the community and our kids. We have a lot of work to do here, but we're already making positive and progressive strides towards ensuring that our community is involved, that our schools are safe, and that's about it. Did I get all the survey questions? Okay.
Do we have much textbook adoption?
We actually,
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Next school year, we'll be looking at science textbook.
You're gonna be piloting next year? What? Purchase at the end of the year?
So what's in the budget, well, it's in the LCAP, so it's budgeted in, but it's in goal 7.3. We do have funds designated for the adoption committee, with the idea being that we would bring to the board a recommendation from the teachers for a purchase late spring, so that we would be able to purchase it during next year before June 30th, so that it hits the books next year.
2021, gotcha.
Yeah, and we actually had a meeting with county office yesterday, in which case Anthony Kwan is gonna work with us and get it set up.
Although it's difficult to get Anthony Kwan because he does do that and he's really busy, so I would recommend that you get it on the books because
Yeah.
he'll do his best, but then it gets kind of where his calendar's full, so.
So then the plan is to pilot this year, get the purchase in this year, for use next year, that's what I heard.
Yes, and then, just as a point of interest, this is the summary of the plan for anyone who, either has a strange fascination with reading through 126 pages of 6-point text, or, you know, I mean, really truly wants to know the details, because this is the summary of it. The LCAP draft is attached to the board agenda for anyone who wants to download it and look at the draft. There's also a copy in the front office that people can check out if they don't want to use their own print. You know, we have to keep it here, but it is available to people either online or in a hard copy in the front office for people to review if they want to read the details, including how much is allocated for each of those actions.
So I think that it was mentioned, we'll have a second read on the 27th of June.
Is that, then, I have a question, go back, that's what I was gonna ask. Can you go back? Sure. Improve and increase mental health support at all sites. It is 120 pages. Are we allocating funds to enhance these services?
Okay, so improving and increasing can happen either like an increase in financial obligation, you know, or FTEs, or in what they're doing. So I think it's common knowledge that at one point we had 4 counselors, and when one left, we determined to leave it at 3. The plan is written in there, in this plan, is to stay at the 3 counselors, but what the counseling staff and the others, I think for the counselors and the special education team have been meeting. One of the things, like for example, this year they were able to work together and get a second partnership with an external counseling service that we can refer students to. So they're gonna really work at having like a tiered process for counseling so that more students can access it and more in-depth services will be available for our students who, you know, if level 1 is that all students get, you know, how do you be kind to each other, how do you deal with conflicts, level 2 would be, you know, meeting one-on-one or in small groups at the school for short-term needs, and level 3, they've increased to a second partnership with a community group. You know, the ability to refer students who have significant or chronic needs. So it's not necessarily a financial increase, it's an increase in what's available through our partnerships that are not a cost to the district, but an increase in services to students.
So it doesn't feel like a coordinator, a student needs to become aware, then they're able to coordinate and focus support so they get the support they need.
Yeah, before Dr. Cooper was here, and actually all the way when I was at High Desert still, we had an example, we had some families who had requested a referral for in-depth counseling for children that had some pretty significant needs. And we only had one partnership, and they were running behind, and the families were very frustrated because it took almost 6 months to get the help that they needed yesterday. And so the team worked really hard this year, and I think Ms. Pattison was involved in it as well, getting those partnerships so that we actually have a second place to refer families. So if you have a child who's significantly depressed or suffering from anxiety or whatever, can get seen in a timely manner. So their goal is to continue to develop and expand those partnerships.
Thank you. I understand. That was my question. I'm sorry I distracted you from that.
No, I'm glad you asked, because I know that that's something that did come up even during strategic planning, is that we're trying to be like increasing and being smarter with what we have. It's not necessarily a monetary increase in that area because that conserves the money in other areas. We have, you know, some students who need a level of service that's beyond what's even appropriate for our
Right, and if we don't have enough places to refer them to, then there's a bottleneck, and so you're trying to eliminate that bottleneck by increasing the capacity and the arrangements so that we can get people seen. Makes sense. Thank you. That was my question. Anybody, any further questions?
I don't have any.
Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that closes the hearing at 9:22. And brings us to the next public hearing for a federal addendum. Okay, it's 11.08, public hearing, federal addendum. Motion to open the hearing, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. That was 10, and it's 9:23. Want to explain to us?
Yeah, go ahead. Are you waiting for something to come up?
Yes. So it doesn't have to. The federal addendum is a partner document to the LCAP. So it's going to look at Title I funds, Title II, and Title I A and D, Title I-A, Title II-A, Title III-A, and Title IV-A. And this is not meant to replace our LCAP. It is, like you said, to help it enhance, to supplement that federal spending.
So if I understood this right from when I reviewed it online, you have the LCAP, which is state required, and then for the federal dollars that come to you, you have to tie it together. That's correct. And so it's the addendum that addresses the federal dollars, such that we can receive them.
And it's the first year that we've had to do.
And is that because that's a new requirement from the federal government? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they're actually, what they're looking to do is have districts really think strategically about how they combine funds for different things. Like Title I is you know, as it says, you know, to, you know, prevent and intervention programs for children that are at risk. So how does that fit in with what else we're doing? Can we use that to continue to?
So in some fairness to the federal government, because I kind of said it disparagingly, this is kind of efficient because it lets us use our LCAP and explain how it addresses the federal dollars without a whole other set of documents. So.
Yeah, and what you'll see next meeting is the CONAP. This is really just the, like what we're gonna do with it. Next meeting, you'll see the CONAP, which is an annual thing that we bring where you're gonna see the dollar part of it and what we're actually officially asking for, but this is, you know, our thinking about how do these funds support our kids.
Is this not the accountability measure for what used to be No Child Left Behind?
It is. Perfect.
So I'm just going to talk real briefly on how we're using the money in these different areas. So Title I, we have services and materials. So money is allocated to services and materials to close the achievement gap in both math and reading. Title II, we're using it to help support instruction, so professional development. Title III, we use the funds for EL students only. So we're putting people power in, so we have staff that's being hired with these funds to support our English language learners. Title IV, you heard a little bit about, and we're increasing our mental health services with Masada Homes. And that's that document.
Okay. All right. Oh, did you have a question?
No, I.
Oh.
All right. I thought you paused.
I'm going to close the hearing pending no other questions on the board at 9:28. All right. Okay. More hearings. 11.09, public hearing, the proposed AADUSD budget for 2019 and 20. We'll go ahead and open it. Do I have a second? Tim Jorgensen seconded. And it's at 9:28. This should look familiar. We do this 3 times a year.
We do it, yes, and you know, and I think I've shared with trustees that, you know, at times I thought, oh, I'm gonna, you know, change it up, and I,
Yeah.
you know, we keep, you know, like in the format and what I
We
take in.
still like the little pots of money,
Well, I leave it because we, there are people who keep coming that I new faces, and so I, you know, so I want to make sure that we get everyone up to speed, and we can go through it as fast or as slow as people like. So, just a point of clarification, when we implemented as a state, LCFF and the LCAP, they are partner documents. One is the, you know, the spending plan and the academic plan and the goals and services that are used for all the money that's in the budget that is LCFF. At this time, our district only includes LCFF money as actual expenditures in the LCAP. The state is very specific. You must hold an LCAP hearing before you hold a budget hearing, and then you must hold an LCAP adoption before the budget adoption. So we can go to the next slide. Again, you guys can look at it, it's available online, but just in the interest of time, this is the budget cycle, and it is a cycle. The district is always working on at least 2 budgets. Currently, we're in the process of closing out the 18-19 year, and you'll see that in estimated actuals, and then we'll bring later on in September the unaudited actuals. But what we're really going to show you here is our adopted budget for 1920, but alongside of that, you're going to see our estimated actuals, which gives everybody an opportunity to see how our budget compares from one year to the next in different areas. So our budget considerations at this point, as we've mentioned, we are in the process of going through strategic planning, but This is what, at least currently, we have adopted and what the goals have been, and the driving force as we're developing our budget. And I do say our budget, this is everybody's budget. This isn't Lynn's budget, this isn't the district's budget, this is everybody's budget, because a budget is just a vehicle for everything that happens. So we do, as a district, want to make sure that we maintain our general fund reserve in spite of volatility that comes either from where we get some of our funds, and we'll address that a little more later, or things that happen in the state. Because when we all, most of us here, survived the Great Recession, and we want to make sure that should something like that happen again, we are still in a good financial state to withstand changes. Programmatic enhancements, so again, something we began a while back, we want to try and maintain as much as we can for as long as we can with programs and services that are good for students. Deferred maintenance enhancements, again, we don't have a lot of money, but we do want to, with our ability, with what we do have, to be able to maintain safe and attractive campuses. We do want to keep in mind that we do still have a goal of improving this campus and finishing those projects. And we want to continue to expand our relationships with other districts. We've done a lot of work with that in the last year, including, as you, I think, mentioned in one of our recent meetings, we've actually begun hosting meetings for other districts in the county office. They enjoy coming here, and then also with our charter schools. Budget considerations, we've already seen what our LCAP goals are, but that's what drives at least the general fund and our budget. Our budget and our funds, again, big pot of money. Things changed from the way we used to fund, where we had many, many little pots of money with very segregated amounts of what we could do. We now have one big pot of money that is unrestricted in the form of LCFF, and then we have restricted funds that come in for things like special education, transportation, a few other things, lottery funds, and that they're restricted in what we can use them for, but it's changed from back in the day where we had all these different pots of money. We have one big pot of money that we're, as we noted before, even with federal money, supposed to have a strategic plan and how it benefits. We have other funds in the district. They're little pots of money, also typically for designated and restricted services for things such as transportation, actually, sorry, not transportation, deferred maintenance, developer fees, capital projects. So those funds are restricted, and we can at times borrow from them temporarily, but we always need to put that money back. So for those who are not familiar with the way the LCFF funding works, we get a per student allocation as a base, and then we get adjustments for grade span in K-3. We don't call it class size reduction anymore. We call it grade span augmentation. This district gets approximately $1,200 per student. That is identified as an English learner, foster youth, or low-income student. You can be one of those things or all three and still generate funds, but you only generate the funds one time. Actually, sorry, that's for the demographics. For grade level, it's K-3, and then also some money for 9-12. So those are both augmentations that go on to the base. It's ADA driven, so attendance matters. And so, so you can see it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you use $10,000 as an approximate number for most districts, if we actually go down to 94% instead of 95%, and you multiply that times the number of students, you can see that that would be significant. So that's something to keep in mind, is that our ADA and attendance is important. K-3, our district has a negotiated class size of 26:1 to generate that money. If as a district, and our contract language says that it's a grade span average, if we were to go beyond the 26:1 in grades K-3, we would lose all of that additional funding generated by the K-3 augmentation. So we constantly monitor that. Currently, our K-3 class sizes have a class size average of 21.5, which is commendable. That's one of the things that that we've been able to enjoy, at least for this point in time. We have a very low class size. Unduplicated pupil percentage is 20% of the base, so each of that, when we have those demographics, it generates an additional 20%, which is where we get that approximately $1,200. Some districts, not ours, get an additional 50% of the base if they have those unduplicated pupil counts, foster youth, English learner, or low income. If the district percentage is above 55% of the enrollment, students begin to generate an additional 50%. Our 3-year rolling average is what they look at is about 54%. So we do not get the additional 50% in our district. Some of our neighboring districts do, which is why at times they have significantly more funds available than we do. So, next slide. So the assumptions that were used in the budget, and when I say assumptions, I mean what I was thinking when I was planning and when we worked as a team. The left side numbers are for 19-20, and the other numbers are for this prior year that we're just closing out, 18-19. So enrollment, we used an enrollment of 1,065, which is a loss of approximately 19 students. We are back in a declining enrollment pattern. If we just move students forward, we're exiting class sizes from the high school of approximately 85 to 100, depending on the several years out. Our last 3 years of kindergarten classes have ranged from around 47 to 65. So we're exiting larger classes. So we do need to be aware of that and keep that in mind. Our funded ADA, ADA is based on current or prior year, whichever is more. So even though we are in a declining enrollment, we kind of get a reprieve. For the next year, we'll be able to use our current year ADA, which is 1,028.66. Our unduplicated pupil count, so of our 1,065 students, we have 541 who meet the criteria of the unduplicated pupils that we mentioned before. And so it's about 52.34 in our rolling average. So our rolling average is going up because a few years ago we did a really careful analysis to try and identify all the students who would be eligible and really did a campaign for people to, if they were eligible for free or reduced lunch, because it benefits kids and drives funding. STRS employer rates and PERS employer rates are continuing to increase. Not as much as we had thought, because the governor did put some money in to give a little bit of a reprieve on that. No one-time funding next year in the governor's budget. In the past, that the governor has sometime given money. There is no one-time money this time. The bargaining unit negotiations, tentative agreements were not included because at the time of budget development, we were still in negotiations. We do have tentative agreements at this point, but they're not included in the budget. We planned for it, but it's not actually included in the budget as far as in the expenses. Local revenue has been adjusted and assigned because we had 3 charter school closures and then possible non-renewals. So at the end of this year, we have 2 that have not renewed and 1 that had the other problems. So, and then we also have some possible non-renewals depending on how their budgets turn out in 19-20. So we have adjusted that revenue, and there were no funds transferred from the general fund into other funds for capital improvement projects. So we do not have a new source of funding for major projects in the district. And then of course our goal is that we want to maintain the general fund reserve that's required for this year and our out years. So now that we know what we were thinking when we developed the budget, here's the summary. Again, on the left, it's our estimated actuals compared to our budget. So in the coming year, our revenues are estimated to be, or projected to be 18 million. Expenditures are slightly over 18 million. So we are in a slight deficit spending compared to our revenues. If you note something of significance, and we'll see it again later and readdress it, our revenues for this coming year compared to the prior year are significantly less, even though LCFF is going up, and that's because of the loss of almost $2 million in charter oversight fees. So our expenditures continue to increase and our revenues are somewhat decreased. So that's something that we need to be cognizant of. our beginning balance when we close at the end of this year, we're going to have a very significant ending fund balance because many of our charters grew very significantly this year. And part of that was due to some of the ways they were calculating their ADA and obtaining students, but that is what's in the budget now and what their ADA is reporting. So, next slide. General fund revenues, again, points of interest there are LCF is fully implemented, so back even up to last year, we were still getting gap funding, which meant that we were getting significant new money year over year. Now, all of our increases in LCFF is based on COLA in calculating the base, so no more gap funding. Our supplemental funds, which is something to keep in the back of our mind, is almost $1 million. And so those are funds that we need to use to primarily benefit our English learners, low income, and foster youth students. So we have budgeted that way, but we do need to point out that we have almost $1 million in supplemental funds. One-time funding, as I noted, is not included in there. Our ADA is decreasing slightly. Charter oversight fees were budgeted at our current level of 3%, 1% plus an additional 2% for contracted services that we provide to the charters. And then we do have decreased revenue due to the closure of the 3 charter schools in 1920 and possible non-renewals. Down at the bottom, there was actually, the board has asked in the past for the amount of revenue which is put into our general fund and shown in the other local revenue. So when you look at other local, if you go down to the box on the bottom, that's how much we're actually generating. So you can see that it's second interim because that was based on the certified ADA for oversight fees. It was 3.6 because of the astronomical growth of some of our charters. At the end of the year, when we have certified P2, we believe that it'll close out with 5.5 million in oversight fees, but then because of the loss of the charters, it reduces back down to 3.4 million. Okay, expenditure summaries. Again, we continue to have increased costs for step and column, which happens every year because people move over on the column with more experience and perhaps more learning. Some of our people, our staff goes to take classes. Increased costs for STRS and PERS. Our health and welfare, we budgeted at currently contracted rates. We do include 3 professional development days that were contracted permanently with our teacher bargaining units, and we actually are including our CSEA and some training next year. To clarify what was asked earlier, is we do have money in the expenditures for a science adoption that includes the committee and the purchase of the textbooks planned by the end of next year. And then basically the actions and services with LCFF that are that include in the LCAP. So again, you can see, you guys can all read, so I don't necessarily need to go over unless you particularly want me to, but that's how our expenditures break out. So, our MYP. We have some really, really good news and then something that we need to be cognizant of. This year we actually are going to close the year with a very high reserve level. We expect to close the 1920 year with approximately 24%, but it's critical to look at where it says reserve level on the last gray line before the gap that's white. It actually does go down rather rapidly because we continue to have, we budgeted all of our years with continuing salaries, and this does not assume any layoffs, it does not assume any reductions in staff.
And it also doesn't assume the tentative agreement value you said. It's not in here yet.
No.
So that would reduce.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we do believe that with the tentative agreements that we will still have a sufficient reserve by 2021, 22. We believe that we will have an adequate reserve. This also assumes, remember, that we did not change our charter oversight fee amounts. So as we get additional information, as our charter enrollments change, because we do expect some growth, as Patterson was sharing with me that some of our charter partners do expect some growth next year. So that, you know, as we see, that can change, but we don't budget for it till we actually see it.
Well, that's good, because to me, that trend line is kind of grand.
I'm not gonna lie, it's concerning to me. We probably will need to address as an entire district and a team how to address the increasing expenditures and, you know, the realities of declining enrollment. Our enrollment is actually declining approximately 20, you know, if we don't have students move in, approximately 20 students per year. One of the other things that was a challenge this year is that we had to plan our ADA at a little over 94% instead of a little over 95%. Our attendance this year, in spite of attendance initiatives, probably because of the weather, was not very good this year. We lost approximately 1% in our attendance rate. You know, so again, that combined with a loss of approximately, you know, 19 students, that's around, you know, 18 ADA. Those are the things that we're going to have to look at and address. How do we make good decisions that, you know, continue to maintain staff and programs for students and maintain safety with the reality of decreasing enrollment.
So I know you said the tentative agreement isn't in there, so that would lower all the numbers.
A little bit, yeah.
The PERS and STIRS increases that?
They are budgeted.
They are budgeted.
Yes, the things that we know, we only include what we know, either have an entitlement letter for, have a statement, you know. We use school services in California as our kind of gold standard as far as what our assumptions are. That's what most people in California use as an organization that interprets the governor's budget into usable information for school districts.
I just think it's worth noting. I mean, I was here, I'm the only one here who was here when it was really, really lean, like 3%. We were struggling for 3%. But although those numbers look good, I think the average that we learned for small districts, the reserves are somewhere around 20%, 18 to 20. So, you know.
Unified districts across the state had an average of about 16 to 17%. You know, so yeah, we're looking really, really good. And I'm not going to say unexpectedly, because if you think back to first.
My point is that, you know, at 9.6, 2 years out, but it's really going to be a little bit lower when we close all the books. That's not, I mean, it's better than the real bad old days, but it's not as good as many other districts today.
Correct, and if you continue the reduction in the percentage per year and take it out, it is something that, you know, in the fourth year we really need to be thinking about now. You know, and again, I want to point out that I'm not, if you remember back to first and second interim, I had mentioned that the ADA and the charter revenues would likely go up, and we would probably see a good year this year because we had such huge growth with our charter partners. You know, but we couldn't book that until we actually saw certified P2. So, you know, we are ending the year very healthy. And next year will be very healthy. Even the second year is very healthy, but the trend line of change is something we probably, you know, definitely need to look at and see what we can do to maintain enrollment, increase attendance, and really look at how can we, you know, make sure that as things change in the state, you know, how we're going to, you know, maintain all of our services and programs for students, keep everything away from students and classrooms that we can. So, summary of other funds. This is the I present this a little bit differently at this point in time than other points in the year. These are our beginning balances for our other funds. Fund 13 is our cafeteria fund. 14 is deferred maintenance. So our projects that would be, you know, like your home maintenance, your major projects like roofing, major painting and things like that, as opposed to day-to-day sort of, you know, handyman things. A reserve that's not for capital improvements is Fund 17. If we put money in there, that would actually be considered as part of our reserve. Some districts do put it there to, not to hide it, but to keep it, you know, with a committed purpose from the board. We don't put money into Fund 17. Capital facilities, facilities from a state grant, that will be completely expended now that we've finished up Vasquez, and then a reserve for capital projects. That's money that we put into a fund for capital projects. It's historically been designated for Acton, although some of it's used for Vasquez as well. So the big idea on this particular slide is that our ending fund balances, we look at that, and then the amount available for interfund borrowing, we can use up to 75% of our funds if we need to borrow from that for cash purposes, meaning that, you know, same as at home, there are times where you have a bill that comes before your paycheck is going to come, and so you might borrow from your savings. It's just a timing issue. So we have up to, you know, $544,000 that we can borrow internally before we would need to go out to our county pool. But as those numbers decrease, we have to make sure that we have enough of reserves so that we constantly have enough money for payroll. You know, going back to your comment on the 16%, 16% is only 2 months of payroll. So, you know, as those expenses come in and the timing of our revenues come in, we need to make sure that we have enough to do what we need to do for the other funds, but also that we can borrow if need be. So in summary, the good news is that we have a positive certification. We're able to meet our financial obligations for 1920 and the 2 years out. We've already talked about the vast majority of those other things. You can read it for your own. I think the most important point is we've already mentioned, you know, we are in a declining enrollment pattern, so we need to, you know, try and maintain all of our kids that we can, and hope that, I've seen a lot of sales signs up, so hopefully we have some kids moving in. And we want to make sure that we can continue to maintain our facilities and do any upgrades we need. So, you know, we'll just have to monitor what's going on in the state with all the different laws, with a new governor and a new state superintendent, and we'll bring this back for you in next meeting for adoption. But we'll, you know, obviously be working with you and giving you any updates as we hear changes on different legislation and such. Any questions?
Party time. I remember sitting out there like 4 years ago and hearing that the prediction was that our school enrollment would be in the 900s. I recall that. I would say that more so than kid leaving and a couple of population bubbles flowing through, we've been pretty much able to retain our student base here. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Lynn, when at the beginning of this year, you didn't have LACO coming back to you and say, adjust your fund balance because we see you moving money around and we can't figure out why. That was nice for a first, thank you. I want to talk about something. So you remember I mentioned a little bit earlier about the motivation of the DA in San Diego, that we would look at a superintendent and say, you're charging X amount of money for oversight, so the 1% plus 2, and that you actually should be charging what actual cost is, meaning that there would be absolutely no revenue generation, you're just covering costs, and that's pretty typical in public sector. Where I work, our fees and schedules go out to city council, and they're really cognizant of this actually costs this, and this isn't a money generating thing. But that said, I don't think throwing stuff at the wall to see what will stick down there is a way to set what limits or what should be. That should be a legislative action in my mind. So I think the motivation might be a little bit different, or pressure up on some people. I want to tell you this, even in my world, I need actually 2 cells in an Excel spreadsheet. One of them that shows my ADA, and one of them that shows my revenue. And I need a formula that says, if this one kid gets this much money, then it's pretty easy to look at it and say, okay, there's a big difference here. I believe that you've submitted personally, or been involved in submittal personally, of numerous budgets to LACO. I think they've approved them. And I think if they've got that same simple spreadsheet that I would use, they're aware that a significant part of our revenue comes from charter oversight. Would that be accurate?
That's true.
Okay. Have they ever kicked your budget back for that or told you that it might be a negative certification. I don't recall that happening.
That's correct.
I believe that about the time that I came on the board, we'd been criticized, the district, at the state level for charging 3.5% by the assembly chair of the education committee asking our former superintendent why they were charging 3.5. So this board actually took action to make sure that the legal limit was being met, and that was through the action, and that preceded you. So the point is, Lynn is managing through a situation with parameters that have been set, budgets that have been approved by LACO. Lynn does not approve her own budget. It seems to me that there's a trend going on here that some of the earliest charters that came in here, I'm not going to call names up, but there's a block of them that came in here and were approved through, and now it seems that those same ones are floating off to somewhere. I think it's accurate to say that staff or charter oversight staff looks at charters and says, hey, we've got a question about this, we need to know more information about that. And when that information isn't known for one reason or another, they're encouraged to look it over and come back. And I think some of these charters have made several submittals during the year and adjusted things. So it was likely that when they came forward, staff wouldn't be embarrassed by recommending a charter that wasn't ready to bake yet. I think that's accurate. Some of these charters are not coming back. I don't know if it's purely a coincidence, but there's a group that are running over to Lucerne Valley to join our former superintendent, former director of education, and former finance director with their charter over there. And I'm not sure what's so attractive about that being over there, all things being the same. Maybe it's just me sitting on this board that's a problem now. But I do believe that when I ran, and I don't have to campaign anymore, because this will be it. When I ran for school board, my first goal was to reduce dependence on out-of-boundary charters. And it wasn't because I had a problem with charters, it was because the obvious paint was like, it's staring you at the wall, and it's hitting right now. So, all that said, we want to remember that people that jump counties, they set up charters here so they could attract from here, here, and here. So some of the charters that used to be here could actually draw down on enrollment, on our enrollment now. And I'm pretty confident, given the quality of our program and what we offer, that is what did I write here? Likely to be very insignificant. So when it comes to the charter revenue, I'm glad that we didn't, Lynn, I'll fight with you over a penny to turn it into wire. And I'm glad you have that conservative stance, because this charter revenue is going to fluctuate. I think the number of gains that you're seeing in P2, tell me if this isn't correct. If I tell you that I'm going to give you $2,700 and you could literally use that to buy Disneyland Family Pass tickets and call it STEAM, your enrollment might go up over something that's not going to give you Disney tickets, right? Is that theoretically correct?
That's theoretically correct.
And I'm sure I could find examples on the internet right now, maybe, and some of these people aren't coming back, and that's exactly what's going on. But you have no control over that. Would you say that people who are used to going to charters are likely to continue to go to charters, and the fact that we're creating a very stable environment for people like iLead, that they might not want to go through what they've gone through, some of these shutdowns. They might be actually moving to someone that they feel the brand is more stable.
I think from following Ms. Patterson, I have followed some of the internet, Facebook things related to our charters that are closing, and I know that there was a lot of angst amongst families. I know that when Einstein closed, there was a lot of angst amongst families, and I believe that our families are looking for stability.
And I think they found it. So I appreciate that we actually ask questions and stuff, because a lot of the questions I used to ask are about what people have been indicted for now. So I'm hoping that everything stabilizes. I'm hoping that the measurability of these programs is such that people stay there. And going back to the little programs where 23 people are graduating, that would have been kind of pushed off by society. We do serve some students that I think are very meaningful. So everybody understand, Lynn was dealt the hand she has. Look at the math, see what people are trying to do. Understand that the charter business is collapsing for the lower performers, and that our board is looking at this thinking, you know what, we're gonna make sure that we validate that you deserve to be in the education business. So thank you for your patience.
Mr. President, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, we do. We need to extend, I'm gonna say half hour, we'll take half hour.
Right.
So I'll make a motion to extend 1/2 hour so we can finish our business. It's seconded by Kelly Jensen. Call the question. Aye, that's a 4-0-1. Okay. My only comment on this last topic, you're done. Did you have anything else for the public hearing? Did you? I'll just note that this ties together 3 times a year when we do this. This ties together with some of the things we talk about with full and fair funding, and talk to your representatives. Because California funds education woefully. We're less than half of what other states fund, and we're a high-cost state. Our state just puts other priorities first, and it comes back right here. The other thing that it's strange to say this at a disadvantage for is those unduplicated student counts. Not every student in the eyes of the state is worth the same amount of money. Now, I understand that students with different needs need more resources, but that makes a marked difference from one place and another place that are like, you could be neighbors, but if you're on this side of the street, every kid's worth this. If you're on that side of the street, every kid is worth something drastically different, and it shows up in everything I do. It certainly shows up with our staff. It shows up with everything we do. And you know, I'm not sure that was the right solution, or maybe the state just needs to, rather than people fight amongst themselves for how much a student is worth, just tell your congressman, education matters in California. And that's all we can do to change this narrative, because the narrative is what it is, and you know, it's only going to keep getting tougher because the pensions have to be fixed, which is an obligation and a right the state has. The state has that obligation, and employees have that right, but it's not going to get any prettier. And so, God forbid there be a recession. So at any rate, it's not doom and gloom. We're healthy for the next few years, but we have a unique set of circumstances, being a small district that doesn't have a certain mix of students in between larger ones, and all that in the context of California school funding, which is woeful. So the only thing you can do, talk to your congressman. You know, Democrat, Republic doesn't matter, kids matter.
Just a quick comment. I appreciate both of your comments, yours and Mr. Polygraph's comments. And in terms of one thing we can all have in common, including the full and fair funding effort by teachers, by class side employees, by CSBA efforts, there's something that I would like to encourage us to possibly all to do together. I've had some discussion with the Teachers Association already, and thank you for staying here so late. I'm sure everybody's exhausted. But CSCA as well, I want you to know that I think it would be good for maybe a board or two, you know, if you want to all go, you're welcome to, but to hear the January governor's proposal together as a team, so that it's just, you know, it's one more transparent effort through the School Services of California to kind of hear the messaging together, get our notebooks together, go through the presentation together, and then the same thing for the May revise. So, you know, we'd be happy to take a couple teachers, and Ms. T, if you want to share with Guido, you know, a couple members from your team, and then board, and you just go as a team. I think it'd be nice to hear the same message at the same time.
That's a good idea. Was that it? Okay.
That's it.
Sorry for my dissertation, but it's like, what do you do with the situation? That's all you can do. 10:04 is close time. And And that moves us on to item 12, future agenda items. Mr. King?
So we've pretty much discussed all these before. They're coming up on the agenda. So the only thing that we've added to here, we've mentioned that these are all coming up at the next board meeting, is we'll bring you the 1920 school year. But in addition to that, the board meetings, one of the things that we want to focus on, as we know from our board workshops this year, is the calendar. So we're also going to bring to you the district calendar, which is color coded and so on, but then also bring to you an attached list for your purposes of all the events that are predictable. First day of school, PD days, last day of school, spring break, and so on. But some of them are going to say TBD, to be determined. So at the beginning of the school year, the school sites determine when they're going to have their open house or their back to school night. And so we want to take those pieces and put them in there for you as soon as possible. So you'll continue to get that same sheet throughout the year at board meetings, but we want to just keep you updated and current as possible with the events happening at our sites.
And can we add to the agenda maybe the strategic plan updates, even if we don't have to report out, just let the community know how it's going and where we go on there.
In fact, speaking of that, I wonder if the board would want to, do you want to keep new construction on? Do you want to?
I think we can probably eliminate that category. I mean, the school is
It could be part
pretty
of the
much built.
superintendent's report if you have something to say.
Okay. And then we can have strategic plan update.
All right. Any other questions on future agenda? All right. So 13, item 13, calendar. We have a meeting June 27th, and that's the last one of this.
That's the last one, and then I'm talking to Alana. Traditionally, the next meeting will be the second Thursday, before Thursday in August. So you won't have one the first, what's normally the first board meeting in August. It'll be the second one.
Is that the second, the third, or second and fourth?
The fourth Thursday in August. We'll get it to you. We'll get you that calendar dates.
But for a heads up, it'll be a long meeting, probably the 27th, because we have to adopt all these things.
Yes.
But hopefully we won't talk about it too much. All right. Okay, that moves us
What
on.
was that?
I did it. I did it.
You just got a bigger meeting next time.
Okay. I did know I'm the one that did the talking. So,
I think a lot of the questions got asked tonight.
Yes, I agree. Closed session. So there are things to report from closed session, and we took 3 unanimous votes for closed session, with the 1 absence in each case being Mr. Porter. And here are the 3 votes. In closed session, the board approved the resignation agreement and general release between the district and a certificated employee. That's first. In closed session, the board approved the stipulated expulsion agreement in student discipline case number 1002022. And the third affirmative vote was in closed session, the board approved the stipulated expulsion agreement in student discipline case number 1001999. And that is the report out in close. Item 15 is adjournment. I'm going to call it 10:12. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Tim Jorgensen. I'll second it. Call the question. Aye.